Good morning and welcome to Monday Morning Gasoline. I'm Mikhail, and with me I have today Matt Brooks.
Hey,
Matt, how are you doing today?
doing great. Just
Excellent.
yeah,
So Matt is or is on the board of directors for Urban Engine, a nonprofit that focuses on creating live events in Huntsville and in other parts of Alabama. So that's what I brought him on to talk to me about. So, Matt, can you tell us a little bit about Urban Engine and kind of the
yeah,
goal of the?
yeah. So Urban Engine is a nonprofit in Huntsville, Alabama. Our mission is basically to propel the growth of Alabama's economy by connecting aspiring entrepreneurs and established business leadership to educational resources, talent, and community that startups might need. And we do this through like a couple of programs that we have created. We do some in-person workshops every week on a Wednesday night called CoWorking Night, where we basically have space and conference rooms where people can meet from 6 o'clock to like 10 o'clock and they can talk about whatever it is they want. We have like speaker series events where we try to bring a local business professional that has done a startup or is currently running a startup or has successfully run a large business or something like that. Then we interview them and get their founding stories and how they got there. Their basically their business journey and stuff. We also do hackathons, which like we put on every year. We put on two hackathons, one called Space Apps and the other one called Hudson Alpha Tech Challenge. And so we're part of those, and that's pretty much what we do.
So, full disclosure, me and you met at CoWorking Nights when you guys. I guess to take a step back, Urban Engine's headquartered in Huntsville, but you guys do stuff
Mm-hmm.
outside of Huntsville. And one of the things y'all were doing in 2000, I think 17 or
Yep.
2018, was to bring CoWorking Nights to Birmingham. And I got
Yep.
to be for that inception, and it started out with a lot of promise and really cool, and it augmented some of the other things that Birmingham was doing. But it never, in Birmingham, it wasn't as successful as it's been in Huntsville. So, what do you think? Why do you think it's been so successful in Huntsville?
So I mean, I think it goes down to how it was founded. So Co-working Night in Huntsville was started as kind of a hack night. So it was a bunch of software engineers that got together and basically asked AL.com. And if you're not familiar with AL.com, it's like the big newspaper in the state. But they got like, office buildings in Huntsville, they got office buildings in Birmingham, Montgomery, and stuff like that. And then it basically said, hey, can we take over your space between 6 and 10 p.m.? And they're like, sure. And so they gave us the keys to their office building, and we said, okay, well, we have this office building. What do we do? And I think that the thing that we did differently in Birmingham that we did in Huntsville is because software engineers started it in Huntsville. There was more of a hands-on type mentality to start with. The people who led the workshops are more technical oriented. They were, you do Python 101. You could, at any given night, you could go look at the schedule and see like there'd be a Python class, there'd be like somebody talking about JavaScript, there'd be somebody talking about, whatever. We also, at some point, the people who are more business focused, like the marketers, stuff like that, started having workshops as well. And I think what we did differently in Birmingham is, and maybe it's just the culture of Birmingham, but it tended to be more business focused, and then we found it hard to get the really technical people to come. And so, really, co-working night only works when the reason why it works or what we're trying to achieve is getting a diverse set of people with mix and talent. So you have people that have a technical background, and you're trying to mix in the business people to like create these collisions of people so that you can, if somebody has an idea, then you're providing them a platform to try and take it to the next level or get it developed or whatever. And so we found that it's success in the mix, but it was just we found it difficult to get the technical people to come to Birmingham, and so therefore it just didn't work out.
Also, when you say hack, and by the way, this is the website for co-working nights, and you guys still have a co-working nights in Birmingham, though, right? So we're still.
We just have them in Huntsville right now. That's it. So I think
Uh,
Birmingham we stopped doing it about a year ago.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I
You
guess
probably need
COVID
to take
hit.
it off. Yeah. Yeah.
It
We
might be.
probably,
Although I guess everything's been paused for the last year, so no one's really expected to have like live events. But yeah, as we were
yeah.
talking, doing check yesterday, you know, I think 2021 is going to be the year of these live events. So, the
Yeah.
hackathons, and by hackathon, you mean coding, or do you mean like building like something or a plan? Or, like, what do you mean by a hackathon? Because I think there's a lot of meaning that can take.
So so we do several types of hackathons. We've done everything from designer hackathons to just idea ones. Like but for the most part, when we do these in-person hackathons, we're talking about actually providing some kind of product by the end of it. So there must be code in it. And so what the main goal is that we want to get as much diversity in the groups as possible. So Huntsville has kind of a problem with engineers. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a problem with engineers. It's we have more engineers than we have like business talent, and so we're trying to. Uh, Engineers kind of, I guess it is a problem. Engineers tend to think that they can do everything, and they probably can, but it's not usually a good use of their time. And so we try to like portray that message through hackathons where we're like, okay, you have to have a video on YouTube that that describes what you're doing and the technical challenge and all that. So what it ends up being is, yeah, you have to have code, but you also have to have this presentation to sell it. And if you can't sell it, then there's no point in doing it. So and that's, I think a lot of engineers struggle with that. It's usually not the best technical solution that wins. It's usually the one that is good enough that can and is communicated well enough to developer or not developers, just to customers, so that they can make a purchase or decision on it.
I think that's a very good point, and it's interesting you say how Birmingham is very business focused, Huntsville is very engineering focused. I wonder if like we could have like a mind meld, maybe somewhere in Coleman, or
Coleman.
like,
Well, we could. Yeah, I don't know about Coleman,
but
but
they have a tech incubator as well, right? So, or at least they did before COVID. But is there? And the reason why I'm so interested in this subject is because I want to put on DevOps days in the spring of next year, and making sure that there are engineers there, right, that care about DevOps, that care about automation, and I really wondered if Birmingham has enough internal interest for that, or if we need to appeal to places like Huntsville, which has a huge pool of engineers, right? NASA Space Command, right, is going up there, or I don't. It's, do you know any?
Yeah, I think it's Space Force Command.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Huntsville's got a large presence with NASA too. I think it's probably the largest R&D spend that NASA has. So they do. There's a lot of DevOps that happens in Huntsville. Huntsville's more of an IT town where, like, if you're not creating technology, you're managing it. So, and that's typically, and that technology can range from servers on the ground and for the Army all the way to like servers in space that are like orbiting the moon or orbiting the Earth.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So yeah, so I think there would be a lot of interest in DevOps specifically. Of course, now a big thing in Huntsville is DevSecOps, which like they add security in the loop. But yeah,
I know. I was a DevSecOps global team lead for I think 5 months or so. But basically, it just meant that they threw all the security requirements to the DevOps team, and yeah, they just you were also responsible for passing audits now, which in the end I really don't think is an awful thing, because I think everyone's responsibility, whether you're a builder or a defender, and those are I guess hacking terms of people who protect networks and people who build infrastructure or code. So you really should have we really should have a good knowledge of those security things. So I never had a problem with DevSecOps. Like, I think it makes sense to bring everybody together. And
yeah, yeah. The main thing I have a problem with, which is, it seems to be like what most people do with DevOps. I mean, for me, it's a philosophy. DevOps is a philosophy. It's like you have dev and you have ops and you put them together, and you have the same team under the same agile workflow that's running, both your development and your operations. And so the big thing to me is when is I feel like we've lost that and we've rebranded a lot of system admin to it, and and so it's just I don't know. I kind of I sometimes find it frustrating that it's kind of gone there, but
I think I see your point, and you know, not so much. Is it still called DevOps when you're hand creating code, or you're not using infrastructure code and you're using a portal to create your infrastructure, right? Yeah, web UI where you're not. You don't have repeatable code. You don't have testing, right? You don't have automation. You know, I think you're right on where it's really Linux or systems administration by another name a lot of the time. And but I think if you are implementing DevOps, right, the fast feedback loops, the all continuous learning. Man, what was the first element of DevOps? I forget. It's been a while since the Phoenix project. What was the first one? So the second one is feedback loops. The third one is innovation, and the first minimize work in progress. Right? Was that the first one? Pretty sure that's.
You're talking about like just work
The
in progress. Are
three
you talking
ways
about
of
just like
DevOps.
minimizing like so like are you trying to like reduce the deploy time or something like that?
Well, no, just the. Okay, so one of the Bibles I consider of DevOps is the Phoenix Project, and in it, Gene Kim outlines like the three ways of DevOps through a guru that advises this fake company called Parts Unlimited, and in it, the guru gives the three elements of DevOps, the three ways of DevOps. And the first one is reduction of the work in progress. The second one is reducing the feedback loop. And then the third one is continuous innovation. And if you think about it, it very much ties into lean manufacturing, which also, or lean, the idea of a lean startup, or just lean manufacturing, where you try to reduce the work that's being worked on so it can be tested and work through the pipe faster, reducing bottlenecks in the system. But
yeah, so some of the frustration that I have with Huntsville, because it's heavily government operated stuff like that, is like whenever we talk about DevOps, they always say, well, okay, it's great that you're reducing all this stuff, but how do we build? And it's like, yeah, so they tend to like rebrand it into this like separate thing so that they can call it by the buzzword, but in reality it's just it still kind of has to follow their model of billing. So if they're not opening tickets for things, and then I mean it's kind of like they're not, if they're not intentionally creating these bottlenecks, then it doesn't really give them an opportunity to build, which is kind of frustrating, especially when you're trying to teach like DevOps and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I think you almost have to. You definitely have to have a different billing model to make that to truly implement DevOps and be successful at it, right? So I think I can't really. I don't have sign off to talk professionally about what I do, but there are other models that can be employed. I think in the federal space that are effective, that allow you to prioritize work being done. Making sure that you have support for that work, right, and billing for that idea of, hey, I have an engineer on call anytime in case there's an issue, but theoretically they wrote the automation, so they shouldn't be needed very often, right? And go to more of a open source licensing model, akin to SUSE or Red Hat or Rancher, right?
Yeah.
So I see the frustration that if companies aren't moving towards those practices, right? It's never a good idea if you're trying to keep the water back, right, of progress. I think that's a losing, long term, that's a losing proposition. Like it's just, progress will happen. The question is, will the people who are you're stopping from, advancing, be left behind because of that, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely things that we do talk about in CoWorking Night. I mean, I think we talk about DevOps like it seemed to be once a week, or we'd have like some kind of workshop on it, either going over Docker or Ansible, like tools like Ansible, Docker. I think now the new thing is Terraform. I don't think we've had one on Terraform yet, but we probably would soon.
I do Terraform every day, man. It's definitely eating the Kubernetes world anyway, because it's so flexible for different provisioners. whether you're on vSphere, whether you're on in any of the clouds, or you're on raw metal, there's a way you can make it work with Terraform. It may not be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You may end up writing bash code that is uh, wrapped in Terraform, but it's definitely, I think, one of the only tools that can do that and still provide like a whole bunch of built out stuff. But for things that are not, you still have a path of getting it automated. So, hey, I want to talk to you about this other thing you're doing. So, CoWorking Nights is an awesome thing, and I want to, as soon as I'm back in Alabama, I'd like to come join you guys when you're in person. I want to talk to you about the Hatch challenge that you're doing, and let me see if I can pull that up. All right, so this looks really cool. So, can you tell me a little bit about this hackathon?
Yeah. So Urban Engine teamed up with an institute called Hudson Alpha, and what Hudson Alpha does is they do the genetic research they basically research on biotech and life sciences. And so they have, if you've ever been to, it's actually, if you're going to come visit Alabama and you're interested in technology, it's one of those places you have to go and find, see if they'll give you a tour of it. But basically, if when you enter the building, they've got an institute part. So half the building on one side is this institute where they research all these great, wonderful things and make breakthroughs and genetic sequencing and stuff like that. On the other side, they have a whole bunch of startups. They're an incubator. And so they provide all this data to these companies, and they try to build, they basically try to build companies off their research, and then, with a focus on biotech. And so what they do once a year is they put on this hackathon, and we help actually run it, where they invite, they're looking for a lot of data engineers, science, data science people, just programs in general, actually, and then also people who are interested in doing biotechnology and stuff like that. But they put on like a hackathon to kind of give you an experience of what it was like to work at Hudson Alpha. And so they've created this challenge. It's called the Hudson Alpha Tech Challenge. It's Hatch for short, but it's a unique event that is meant to engage the development community, take on challenges in life science using business strategy, software development, and technology. And this year it's virtual. Yeah.
So April 16th to the 25th. So it's going to be a week long, or a little bit, I guess, longer than a week.
Yeah, it's usually a weekend. They usually do this in person. They love doing it in person. Because of the COVID stuff, they're having to do it virtually. This year they said, okay, we'll make the challenge 16th through 25th, which is basically 2 weekends and a week in between, and then that lets you it just basically to try and make it more accessible for people since it is virtual, and because of we have a lot of mentors. Both in the tech and the biotech, that are basically available and open, and so it's just to make sure that everybody can have access to them, and if they have any questions about some, with something. I mean, I've seen them go. By the way, in the challenge in the past, I've seen the Hudson Alpha. Like, I mean, they have their PhDs, accessible to people. They're actually creating all this wonderful stuff in biotech. They have them accessible, and I've seen hour-long discussions on, this one particular thing or whatever this guy's working on or whatever. And so it's really kind of to kind of, push discussion for people who might be interested in doing this kind of work and learning more about it.
Excellent. So, wow, I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, there it goes. Doing it on Zoom and doing it over, virtual versus doing, how you would have done it last year. Like, what are some of the challenges that we would face? Like, if, let's say, we tried to put on a conference or a hackathon like this virtually, like how do you get people to pay attention?
It's hard. I'm not gonna say it's easy. It's a lot easier to do in-person events because of, people are I guess there's the expectation that, it's expected that you're going to come to this thing, and you're probably going to, like, especially in Alabama, you're probably not going to find a better event. But when you have the internet at your disposal, it's really hard because you have to compete against everything. And I think we do a good job. I mean, if you go and look at the hackathons that are out there, like at least in the next 2 months, like, I mean, this looks like one of the better events. I mean, I'm not, it is.
You're not biased or anything, of course. Yeah.
Not biased, yeah. But,
So,
if there was a hackathon I wanted to go to, this would probably be one of them.
so the space
But
app,
yeah.
when are you guys doing the space apps? Well, not, you guys are also doing a space apps one this year, or is that?
Yeah, yes. So Space Apps happens once a year. It's usually put on by a global committee. So NASA organizes it. We're just one of the people who host the city for it.
I see.
So we're actually Huntsville is one of the larger of the I guess of all the cities that are participating. Huntsville is like one of the largest. I would say we're probably second largest. I want to say India, like there's a few places in India that kind of outdo us, but for the most part, there is like a show that goes along with these hackathons. And if you've never been to an Urban Engine one, this might be unique to us, but because we have we've always had a focus on workshops, we always do a whole bunch of workshops leading up to it. And we also have people that speak in the hackathons before it starts or in the middle of it. And so we put on this main stage event for Space Apps, which we've done on 2 years in a row. We pretty much made the main stage, which basically means NASA comes and takes over our hackathon. And we've had every YouTubers like Smarter Every Day come. We've had the Mohawk guy. I don't know if you know who. I can't remember his name right now. He's the guy who designed the Mars rover.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we did all the interviews. We had, we had a whole bunch of engineers that just come and talk about what they do from NASA, and because everything's interesting. Like even the waste disposal unit is like one of the most interesting topics to talk about because it's not typical, right? Like they recycle everything on the space station. So, how do you turn, pee and poop into water, drinking water is just amazing to me. And then, making it so, yeah. So they actually had, by the way, last year they had the Smart Everyday guy drink the purified water.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So.
I mean, I would, that's reasonable. I watched Waterworld the other day, and so they were doing water purification there as well. I don't have a problem with that. I believe in science, and I believe it. We do a good enough job of cleaning it, and we can chemically test that. Then that's perfectly fine. So I have a meetup up here in the Woodlands that was kind of based off the Birmingham one base, and one of our members, Rudd, he does competitions for NASA all the time. Different ones where he's writing software that will then get deployed to the moon rover, and then the software has to help the rover or tell the rover where to go to pick up certain objects and that kind of thing. So I'm familiar a little bit about some of these NASA challenges, but they're more of I think they're longer events where you have to provide a piece of like a container that can control a physical device. But is it like that, or is that the kind of things y'all are building, or is it more global? I mean,
most of these events are more outreach. For NASA, I mean, NASA would love if you start a company based on something that they have. I mean, and actually, so there's a lot about NASA that you probably don't know. And a lot of that, like for instance, you can buy any of their patents, or you can buy access to any of their patents. So they have one of the sites, I'm trying to remember. I don't know, if you probably Google NASA patent database, you can see all the patents that they have. And then if there's one that you want to make use of, you can go make a bid, and they will give you an exclusive right to it. And so, so they're very much trying to get people to use the technology and stuff that they've developed, in the real world, and find real use cases for it. So, so they would love you if you started a company on it, but yeah.
So you mentioned yesterday that other parts of the government, not just NASA, but other parts of the defense industry in Huntsville also do that with other types of startups and other, with where they need someone for a specific task, and they have to give a certain percentage of their, I guess, contract to small companies. So
yeah,
if I wanted to find out more about that, maybe I'm an engineer and I want to take on a project. So do you know where I could find that, or is that?
Oh man, you're like I don't, so
Well, I
the
didn't.
program
My
you're
bad.
talking
I
about,
didn't prep you.
yeah, I didn't know where. I don't know where to go find it, but it is called the
That's
SBR
okay.
program.
SBR.
So the government does they do put like if you're trying to make a startup in the government, it's actually probably a lot easier. Well, it's different. I wouldn't say it's easier. I think all startups are hard. But if you're trying to do it, they have a programs called SBR, which is basically set aside for small business uses small businesses. And basically what it is the government says, hey, we want this stuff developed. Here's the things that we're looking to have developed and how much we're willing to pay and all that kind of stuff. And then if you wanted to take it on, you basically write a proposal to the SBR proposal, do whatever it is that you're trying to do, to, basically explaining what you're trying to do. And the beauty of this is you don't have to have a sales or marketing team, but you do have to have people who know how to write SBRs or have experience doing it if you really want a chance or a shot. But for most engineers, I think that's more obtainable than having to start a company that does X, Y, and Z, and then promote it and then find a market. Yeah, there you go. SBRS. Yeah, and
SBIR. Okay.
SBR. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Very cool. All right. So sbir.gov to find out more information if you want to take on a government challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, so we don't have much time left. Usually, I like to end it by asking you for some recommendation on learning. Whether it's a book, podcast, or something like that. And is there which of the books that you suggested would you like to talk about?
Well, there's two. I mean, if you're going to go into startup, even if it's if you're chasing an SBIR from the government, I and this is the lean startup. I think that's just like I think everybody who makes a startup has to at least read this book, and even if you don't agree with it all. But it pretty much takes a scientific approach on how to run a business and things that matter versus like a lot of engineers tend to get caught in the details. And I would say that this kind of like says that hey, this is how you figure out what is important through science, and do it scientifically versus like guessing. The other book I would say is a favorite of mine. It's called Bold, and that is basically it covers like what is exponential technology, like what do you find, like how do you find things that have the potential to grow exponentially, and it goes over like several examples of like how that was. Like you can look at Kodak, they have a Kodak example as it like where Kodak failed to innovate on the digital camera, and then the digital cameras just took off, and now you don't buy film from Kodak. It also goes over how Elon Musk selected SpaceX, and what he did differently for SpaceX and Tesla, as far as getting those off the ground, and why it's so special, and why those technologies, well, why he was able to achieve exponential growth with those where others have failed.
That sounds pretty awesome. It's definitely been added to my reading list, and I appreciate that. And and thank you for joining. This is pretty early for Monday morning, so thank you for being up with me and our viewers. And I can't wait to have a beer with you once I'm in Alabama. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
Just check out the Hudson Alpha Tech Challenge. It's happening this week. Starts on Friday.
So the 16th through the 25th, right?
Yep. Yeah, and you can even start on the 24th if you want to join it. But I think it'll be fun. You get to learn a lot about biotech, and then they actually give you some challenges that'll get you started on what you're going to do. So we're looking for 3 kind of specific things this year, and it'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, have an awesome week, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And Matt, talk to you soon.
Bye.